But the issue of birthright citizenship is quintessential for not only the national identity of America, but whether or not America can have a future for itself and protect and preserve its national sovereignty. Unfortunately, SCOTUS has betrayed Americans, the 2024 mandate, and Trump himself. We see here, literally, 10:37 a.m., Supreme Court ruled that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship to children born in the United States, including those whose parents are in the country unlawfully or only temporarily, striking down President Trump's executive order. Chief Justice Roberts delivered the opinion of the court, joined by Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Barrett, and Jackson. Kavanaugh concurs in part in the judgment and dissents in part. Thomas Alito and Gorsuch dissent. Look at that. Look at all the women. All the women vote for birthright citizenship. And it's all the men, all the Chads like Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, just holding down the fort, saying, actually, Americans should be able to have a country. But, of course, we're not allowed to. Americans are not allowed to have a country anymore. Now, so SCOTUS strikes down President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship in a 5-4 decision. And from the majority opinion, this is what they said. Children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause. This is the worst jurisprudence we've seen, arguably, in decades. I mean, we've seen terrible jurisprudence from Supreme Court cases that struck down very traditional American ways of life, namely reading the Bible and praying in public schools in 1963, which we will talk about soon. And it's just so preposterous, right? Pornography and obscenity was all illegal in America for most of its history, but then recently they ruled it's actually free expression, freedom of speech to film yourself getting railed by a bunch of dudes and then post it on the internet and monetize it and ruin an entire generation of young men and women, to completely rob them of their innocence and purity that should be reserved for their future spouse. Because sex is sacred and it's intimate it's a covenant between man and woman in marriage. So we see examples of tons of terrible, just tons of terrible examples of jurisprudence the past few decades and the past 60 years, but especially this has to take the cake. Oh, doesn't the 14th Amendment guarantee birthright citizenship? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It never had. This is what the 14th Amendment says. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. This was for, after the Civil War, to give citizenship to the Black Americans who were freed, who were previously enslaved, who've been in America for generations already. It was for them. It's for them and their posterity so that they can become part of the American fabric when they've already been slaves who've been living in America for generations. This is not so that everyone and anyone under the sun in every single part of the world can come into America, have a child, and then become an American citizen. This is preposterous. This was only for freed slaves after the Civil War. This was not for the entire world. It's absolute insanity. Did you know? We make fun of Europe a lot. Recently, they've been making fun of Europe for not having air conditioning. And by the way, I learned this recently, which is really, really bizarre and actually quite scary, that there are more Europeans who die from the heat waves and not having AC than Americans die from gun violence every year. Like, think about how preposterous that is. Think about how insane of a number that is. More than the rampant gun violence on American streets. Europeans are dying because of heat, because they don't have AC. How insane is that? But yeah, we make fun of Europe. We make fun of Europe and we call out the problems in Europe for their rampant Muslim migration problem. and how their leaders are absolutely cucked to globalist agendas. But even European countries don't have unconditional birthright citizenship. No East Asian country has this. No first world country has unconditional birthright citizenship except for two, Canada and America. Because it's utter insanity. How are you gonna say and allow that millions of tourists, illegals, foreigners can just come into your land, come into your country, have a child, and then now that child is a citizen of the United States? In what world is that even acceptable, remotely acceptable, if you love your country and you want to preserve your country? No. If you agree with that absurd proposition, it is because you hate your country, you're an enemy, and you are a traitor to the country in which you reside. It is insanity that millions of foreigners, whether they be Chinese or Indians or Muslims or Africans, even Koreans, the fact that you can have any foreigner just come into America, have a child, and that child be automatically an American citizen is insanity. And that guarantees you do not have a country for the future. You do not have a country for your posterities. You cannot have a country that you can secure the blessings of liberty for your posterity, for your descendants. America's for Americans. And the fact that SCOTUS ruled against this, it just shows that we are living in an age where we cannot just play by the rules of principles. We can't. The other side is not playing by our rules. But conservatives keep trying to uphold this degree of decorum and constitutional norms, and I get that. But when the constitutional norms, quote unquote, has gotten us to a point where SCOTUS strikes down President Trump's executive order banning birthright citizenship for people who are in America temporarily or illegally, yeah, there's something very broken and fundamentally wrong with the system. The Constitution is not a divine document. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not the word of God. And this is what constitutional conservatives need to get away from. It is not a divinely inspired work of text. It's not. That's blasphemy against the Lord. Is it a great text? Of course. It's one of the greatest political documents ever written. It's brilliant. But it's gotten to a point where the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate and incompatible for a people of any other. Do we have a moral and religious people in America? We have, yes, a very large Christian population, but we have an even larger part of the population, I would say, in America who are godless, who hate America, or who don't even care about the destruction and loss of American traditions, customs, and heritage. So the Constitution does not work for people who hate America. And when you have imported hundreds of millions, or not hundreds, but nearly 100 million and tens of millions of foreigners from incompatible cultures and countries, the Constitution doesn't work. And then if you try to say, oh, the Constitution and the constitutional rights are protected rights for every single person who steps into American soil, you're going to lose your country. You're not going to have a country anymore. And it is crazy that 9 people just ruled. Well, technically 5, but just 9 people, a body of 9 people who are unaccountable to the American public, to the American citizen, can just rule, oh yeah, actually, too bad. America, you're not allowed to have a country anymore. Americans, sorry, you have to be invaded by millions of third world foreigners, and you have to be okay with it. Because why? Because we have an improper reading and a really, really, quite frankly, retarded, liberal, historical revisionist reading of the 14th Amendment. So too bad. Sorry. If a CCP spy comes to America, has a child, oh well, that's an anchor baby. That's an American citizen. You are protected under the Constitution. It's ridiculous. This was the most important ruling in modern American history to dictate whether or not America has a future for Americans. And SCOTUS just struck it down. Now, what's next? Well, what is the solution? Well, we can't play by the principles that are shackling us. These foreigners, our enemies, infiltrators in America are not playing by the rules. So if you play by the rules and you're playing a game that the other side is not playing and they're completely destroying you and getting everything that they want, well, maybe it's time to rethink our strategy and come up with new ways to win. Because we are living through an existential crisis, not only in America, but all throughout the first world, for preserving your national identity and having a home for your posterity. That is the priority. And even in the Declaration of Independence, it literally says, if the government does not work to advance the interests of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then it is incumbent on the people to change the system. So it is not anti-American to not only play by the rules, not just completely just be, purists that, if we do something that's unconstitutional, then we're bad people. Like, no, that's not how things work. The Constitution, it is not the word of God. It is not a divinely inspired document. Our allegiance lies to Christ first and foremost and to our country. And yes, we all know this. Our government and elected bureaucrats, but even unelected bureaucrats can do things that are against the interest of your own country. We all know this, but then why do conservatives hold on to abstractions of constitutional principles to lose? We can't. The enemies they're using your principles against you. So what Trump has to do is what Biden did when Biden said, Supreme Court ruled on this. Well, who cares? I'm going to do what I want. And we all knew that Biden wasn't controlling everything. Who knows who was controlling things behind the scenes when Biden was in the White House? Maybe it was Obama. I don't even think it was Kamala. Kamala's too stupid. But yeah, we don't know. But the Biden administration just said F you to the Supreme Court for many of its rulings. So what Trump has to do now is say, okay, well, if you're going to go against the 2024 mandate of the American people, then we're just going to move forward because this is unacceptable that we allow birthright citizenship for people who are here temporarily and here illegally. You are creating an incentive structure that allows for a foreign invasion. Trump just has to say no. It is not a time today, right now, in this moment, present moment in America. We find ourselves not in a time where we can play by rules that will kill us and shackle us. You need to take back your country. And Trump always says this. I forgot. I know I'm butchering it, but I think he's quoting Napoleon. It's like, he does no wrong or he commits no crime if he does it to save his country. Something like that. I know I'm butchering it. But truly, we've gone to a point where the constitutional revisions and the slow liberal march through our institutions have completely rendered all of us powerless. And while we have power still in the White House, it's time to just completely cram through what you need to get done to save this country. And I'm not saying commit evil and justify evil by saying I'm doing this for my country, but objectively, if we allow for birthright citizenship unconditionally for every single person who steps onto American soil and has children in American soil, yeah, we're doomed. America's doomed. You can say goodbye to America. America is toast. Now, I love America. I want America to be for Americans. But truly, Trump, remember this. This is the quote. He who saves his country violates no law. I believe this wholeheartedly, that Trump, if we have a very, very limited window to restore sovereignty back to Americans in this country. And if the GOP congressman and SCOTUS stand in the way of Trump effectuating that change, then something has to change. Trump needs to just do it himself. Because this is not tyranny. This is not totalitarianism. This is not fascism, or Trump is not being a dictator. 2024, the majority, he won the popular vote. Americans voted for mass deportations. We all voted so that we would get rid of birthright citizenship, that we would restore America to its former glory and strength and order. That's what we voted for. So the American people have spoken. But then we have GOP congressmen not passing the SAVE Act, doing nothing, and the SCOTUS striking down whatever they can, Trump's agendas and executive orders. Trump just needs to do it himself. Maybe he needs to be more like a Nayib Bukele or a Lee Kuan Yew to save this country and put it back on a place of sanity.